help if I plugged in.
If you're into guitars, metal riffage, mixing, and everything in between, hit subscribe and follow along.
Hi guys, how's it going? I hope you all are doing well and you're safe and you're washing your hands. Make sure you're washing your hands. And if you haven't invested in a bidet yet, go on Amazon and get a bidet. Guarantee you those aren't out of stock. I can tell you one thing. We are not going to delve into the state of the world right now, but what we are going to delve into is another Helix tone. It's a metal tone, and this time it's a dual amp tone. This has been brought up several times by various followers, members, supporters of the channel and whatnot, and I've never really experimented much with it. A little bit I have, but this time I kind of set out to make as heavy... Someone flushed the toilet. This time I really set out to make a dual amp guitar tone, and we're going to dive into it. So let's stop rambling. You see, these tone videos, I just ramble. So I'm going to put the headphones on, and then we are going to get to work. So this is it right here. Got to get all those sounds. Now, what I really liked about this tone after I kind of got done playing with it is just, I don't know, something nice about the palm mutes. The two amps together, and you're going to see as we go through it, they aren't evenly matched as far as volume goes, but something that they do together just makes it such a pleasing palm mute. Anyways, again, see? All right, so let's dig into this bad boy. This is my dual amp Helix tone. I am, of course, using my Solar Guitars A1.6 Artist with the Evertune bridge. Favorite guitar. We are running into the Helix Rack for this one. Per usual, the input I have set to guitar. I have input gate on. The decay is down to 10 milliseconds, and the threshold is -48. Then we have the Scream 808, because I like to use the Scream 808 to tighten the low end. And that's the way I like to do it. The gain is set to 0, the tone is set to 8, and the level is set to 10. Now, here are the two amps we're using. This is going to come as a surprise to some of you. I am using the Line 6 Badonk, of course. It's my go-to. I just love it so much, so stop judging me. The drive is set to 5. The bass is set to 3.3. The mid is 5.6. The treble is 5.6. The presence is set to 7.5. Channel volume is at 10. Master is at 5. Depth, 0.1. And then sag bias and bias X are all at 5. Then I'm running this amp into an EQ. I'm using the parametric EQ. So the low frequency is set to 170. The low Q is set to 0.7. And we are subtracting 1.4 dB. And then I'm boosting a little bit at 2K. Boosting a little at 2K. The Q is set to 5, and I am boosting half a dB. And then I am also boosting what am I doing? I'm boosting 1 dB at 8K, and the Q is set to 4.9. I also have the high cut turned on, and let me show you. You're going to be able to hear what it's doing, I think. So that's it with the high cut on, and we'll turn it off. Now you can leave it on. And it's crazy because all I'm doing is just turning it on to the lowest or to the highest, which is 20K, and it rolls off enough. I kind of did that. I ended up doing that at the end just to get rid of some of that hair. This is something you can play with. And that's it for that kind of path. And then we're splitting, obviously, right here. We have the splitter, and it's running into the Revv Gen Red. So the Revv Generator amp model. And let's see what we're doing here. The drive is set to 3. The bass is set to 3. The mid is set to 6. The treble is set to 7.9. The presence is set to 7.6. The channel volume is all the way at 10. The master is at 5. The resonance I brought down to 0.5. The aggression is up to 2. The sag is up to 6. The hum is down to 0. And then ripple, bias, and bias X are all at 5.0. Now, this is where we're doing some more work right here at this merge block, if you will. The level A is the Badonk. It is set to 0 dB. The pan is centered, of course. The B level, which is the Revv Gen, is set to negative 6.4. It's centered, and this is important. I have the polarity inverted on the Revv Gen model. Now, let me show you what that's doing. This is with it. This is what we're working with. And now I'll switch the polarity back to normal. Sounds funky, like super mid. We're losing a lot of that, you know, the low end, and we're losing a lot of that hair too. Now, I mean, you could use this as your tone if you wanted, with more of a mid-focus type of thing. But once I flip this, I was able to kind of dial in the tone I was looking for. So swip that polarity back to normal. And I kind of just experimented with, let me see, what did I do exactly? We had the both, if we had these both set to 0. To me, it sounds like when they're both set to 0 dB, it sounds like there's a rat pedal almost, or you know what I mean? A fuzz. Now, I'm not saying it sounds bad, but for me, wasn't what I was looking for. So I brought it down. Now, have the polarity set to normal, and I'll bring both of them to 0 dB. Sounds like poop. I inverted the polarity, and then I'm like, okay, we're getting closer. And that's when I messed with the volume of the second amp, which is the Revv Gen. And we had it at minus 6.4. Now I'll turn it all the way down, and you should be able to hear that it is actually adding to it. So This is with the Revv all the way down. Again, a tone that is usable, but it's a little boring. When you bring in that Revv, it's adding certain frequencies, it's canceling out certain frequencies with the Badonk, and it's really kind of tightens it up. Sick. You know, when you're blending stuff, it's important to mess with this kind of thing, you know, mess with the levels, flip polarity to see what you're missing, what you're stand to gain by inverting the polarity. Always something to play with. Then I have that running into the next path just to kind of make sure I don't overload anything DSP wise, even though I'm sure I'm not even close. I have an IR block. I have the high res, the 2048 IR block. Just a quick note, if you're going to be using 2 IR blocks, you can't use 2 2048 IR blocks. You can only use 2 1024 IR blocks. I had a question about that in the comments. So we are using an Ownhammer IR, the 412 Zilla with the V30s R121, which is the Royer 121, and it's right up on the grill. So it is sounding pretty sick. Now, I am doing some cutting here. I have the low cut set to 90 Hertz and the high cut set to 10.2K. So let's turn that off. Doesn't sound bad, but it could get a little, you know, fatiguing, high-end wise. So we were down to 10.2. Still getting the principal sound of the amps, you know, we're still, that the tone is still there. We're just cutting off some of the high-end sizzle. Again, something you can play with because, you know, you might want some of that high end. You might not want it as dark. We are sort of leaning towards the dark side of this tone. Woo! And then, like I said, I have the low cut up to 90 Hertz because it was just too rumbly. Now, I know a lot of you bedroom players are thinking like, man, that sounds sick. Now, if you're playing just like this, alone with no music, no bass, no nothing, cool, that sounds great. I'm telling you, that's too much low end for a mix, for jamming with other instruments. So what do we have that at, 90? 90 Hertz. Still got some balls, there's still balls there, but you know, it's not overly rumbly. When I was 19, all this low-end woofiness would sound awesome. Not in the context of a mix, boys. All right. So then I have the a legacy reverb, the room. Everything is default aside from the low cut is set to 200 Hertz, the high cut is set to 4K, and the mix is 14%. And again, I do this on a lot of my tones to give it a little kind of realism, to make it sound like it's actually mic'd up in a studio. I'll turn it off. Turn it up a little bit more. Again, excuse me, something you can tweak to taste. I usually land on 14%. And then the final block I have is an EQ block, and I'm playing around with this low and high shelf here. So I have the low shelf set to 200 hertz, and I'm cutting a dB, and then I have the high shelf set to 5K, and I'm cutting 1.4 dB. So it's a dance between getting the right frequencies, the right high end, the right low end, and then cutting where it's getting out of control. And that's what we're doing. So some of these moves seem like they're contradicting one another, but it's just to rein in what I want to hear. It's to rein in the right frequency, the mid frequency of the guitar, to sound awesome and pleasant and kick-ass to my ears. And this is what I ended up doing, you know. We'll turn this block off. So this is with it on. Turn it off. You know what? It's sounding a little dark with this on. That's what happens. Sometimes you have to tweak this stuff. So I'm going to turn off the high shelf. I like what it's doing for the low end, so I'm going to keep the low shelf on, but it's an evolving thing. It's an ever-evolving thing, you know. Your ear gets used to certain frequencies if you're jamming for a while, and then when you come back to it, you know, something might need to be adjusted. So go into these things with an open mind. I'm digging how the high end sounds. There's a little bit of fizz up there. I'm realizing I'm a little sensitive to that, you know, through the course of the years, so, but sounds good. You know, you can rein it in a little bit with the high shelf, so you're not notching, so you're not getting rid of frequencies, you're just bringing down that high end a little bit. So let's go down half a dB. Right now, to my ears, even though I have my heater on, it's sounding a little dull with the high shelf on. So I have the high shelf off. I left the low shelf on because I like what it's doing to the low end. So there it is, boys. So yeah, this is my dual amp tone. It sounds pretty kick-ass. I am using it for the next track I'm working on, the next single that'll be released. I'm still debating whether or not I'm going to have vocals on it. I think I'm just going to end up putting it out there as another instrumental, just to keep the ball rolling, keep the creativity flowing. The ball rolling, creativity flowing. You didn't know I had those skills, did you? Thanks so much to everyone who has become a supporter over on my Patreon page. It means the world to me, and I know a lot of us creative people say that, but it really does mean the world to me that you guys are willing to sacrifice a little bit of money each month to help support what I'm doing. I love doing this. I love helping the community. I love being creative. I love showing you guys the things I've learned along the way. So your support in enabling me to do that means a lot to me, and I really, really appreciate it. For the highest tier over on my Patreon, I am doing monthly Helix tones, and as a matter of fact, I'm about to post another, and this is going to be this month's Helix tone. This tone will work in everything but the HX Stomp for now. Rumor has it that the HX Stomp will get an update at some point that will have more block capacity, so you may be able to pull this tone off. Right now, I don't think you can. But you can use this in Helix Native, obviously in the Helix Rack, Helix Floor, and the Helix LT. This will work. It, again, will be available over on my Patreon. I apologize for those of you who ask me for tones and I don't give them to you. I know a lot of people do, and totally respect that. And I respect your inability or unwillingness to not pay for them. I understand that. That's why I do these walkthroughs. If you want to take the time to listen and pause and figure out how to do it, following along. And I know some people don't want to F with that. So I made it available for both kinds of people. It's impossible to make everyone happy, so ultimately it's about my happiness. All appropriate links down below in the description, including links to my music. And if you dig what I'm putting down, hit subscribe and follow along. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I really, really appreciate everybody's support, all the comments, all the new followers, all the new subscribers on the channel. We're growing, baby. We're doing good things. I got a few things in the works, a lot of good things in the pipeline. I appreciate all the support. I'm rambling at this point. I'm going to end this. I hope you guys are all safe. Take care of one another. Keep a cool head. You know, shit's a little crazy right now, but we're going to get through it. Just think with a level head. Don't overreact. You know, keep the at-risk and elderly people in your family in mind. And we're going to be good. We'll get through this just like everything else. No worries, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night. Hey.